Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Mei Lee Show. It is November 2nd, which means there is one more day until Election Day. It is unbelievable. I can't believe it's finally almost upon us. But what's amazing is that already 93 million votes have been cast in early voting. 93 million and counting. The expectation that it's going to hit 100 million before the polls even open tomorrow on Tuesday. So that is extraordinary. That really tells us something about the enthusiasm, the interest, the anxiety that people have that is making so many people cast their ballots early. People knowing that this is such a crucial election in our lifetimes. And so that is motivating and driving people to cast their ballots and have their voices heard, which is the point of voting. That is what voting symbolizes, is that this is the way that each citizen of this country can exercise their right to vote and get their voices heard. That's why we vote, okay? If you haven't voted yet, go ahead and some places you can still cast an early ballot and vote, or wait until tomorrow and go to the polling places in a safe way, of course. But there's been some funky things happening, of course, already. But I mean, I guess I could say that about the last 4 years, that the last 4 years have been completely freaking funky. But lately, because of the elections, some weird things have been happening. Some voter suppression kind of activity. One of them was in Texas, and the Supreme Court actually rejected a Republican-led effort to throw out nearly 127,000 ballots that were cast early. These people dropped off their ballots in a drive-through sort of ballot drop-off place. And apparently these GOP activists were claiming that this was illegal because these were meant to be used by people who were disabled. And so normal people shouldn't have used them. So therefore we should throw out 127,000 ballots. Well, apparently the Texas Supreme Court said, no, we're going to reject this request. Thankfully, we're in a freaking pandemic, people. Of course, people should be able to use these drive-through ballot drop-off places because they want to be safe, but they still want to vote. So anyway, now this case and similar cases in Texas, it's going to go to the federal level where a judge is going to hold an election eve hearing about this case. So hopefully this judge too will agree that, yeah, now we're not gonna look at this case. We're going to throw it out. And then more recently, a Nevada judge apparently rejected a GOP lawsuit seeking to halt early vote counting in Clark County in Nevada, which includes Las Vegas. And this GOP lawsuit claims that they're questioning the stringency of signature matching computer software and how closely observers can watch votes being counted, blah, blah, blah. Look, if none of that makes sense, it's okay. So basically what they're trying to do is question the validity of how votes are being counted early. And they're just trying to throw a monkey wrench into it, right? Is that a really old term? Do I sound really old saying that? Okay, whatever. So this is all in an effort to suppress the vote, right? To invalidate ballots. And this is the strategy that we're seeing. And I think we're probably going to continue seeing because there have been other reports, being made about how the vote is going to be suppressed on election day and afterwards. So these are just two examples of what's happening. And this is why we need to be even more cautious and more aware of this election and how votes are being taken in, how they're being counted, and need to be prepared to really be observant and question what is being done to suppress the vote. And so I've been saying to people, listen, if you're waiting until election day to go to the polling places, that's great. That's fine as long as you're going. Don't be intimidated. Don't be afraid. You need to exercise your right to vote, and you need to embrace that right and hang on to it, and don't let anybody try to intimidate you, because this is your legal right as a citizen of the US, okay? So the other development, of course, the cloud that's hanging over all of this is COVID-19. We're still living with it, and guess what? We're going the wrong way, right? The numbers so far, 9.3 million cases as of today, November 2nd, 231,000 deaths and counting. Friday, we saw 99,000 cases in a day. That is a record-breaking number for a one-day case count in this country. And so that is frightening, because we're literally going the wrong way across the country. And we're going into winter. And so, again, I sound like a broken record, because the combination of flu and COVID and winter, the fear is that it's going to get a lot worse. And we're seeing that. And we continue to see the mask debate because that's been politicized. And now Donald Trump is making threats against Anthony Fauci, the virologist, right? The nation's top virologist. Apparently in a late night rally in Florida, of course, Donald Trump was talking about Fauci and COVID and saying, COVID's going to disappear. November 4th, you're never going to hear about COVID. And then people in the crowd started chanting, "Fire Fauci, fire Fauci." So then Trump says, quote, "Don't tell anybody, but let me wait until a little bit after the election. I appreciate the advice." And then after that, he said, "Fauci, he's a nice guy, but he's been wrong a lot." This is a man, Anthony Fauci. This is a man who has served under 6 presidents. He has dealt with HIV/AIDS, Ebola, Zika, SARS, H1N1, and obviously COVID-19. I mean, every virus and disease that has hit this country and around the world. And Trump is saying he's going to fire him and that he's been wrong a lot. No words, really. I mean, look at me. I can't even say. He's like Bozo the Clown. Really? This is like us saying, "Oh yeah, Bozo the Clown is right. Let's listen to him instead of the expert virologist." Anyway, so that's the COVID situation. And of course, Trump is running on the idea that suddenly COVID is going to disappear and we're not going to hear about it, and it's not going to be a big deal after the election. Sorry. Oh boy. So let me move on. I had the honor of interviewing somebody that I admire so greatly, because I really believe she is a true hero, because she actually is a true hero. And she is Senator Tammy Duckworth of Illinois. And she is an American politician, retired Army National Guard Lieutenant Colonel, serving as the junior U.S. Senator of Illinois since 2017. She is a combat veteran of the Iraq War. She served as a U.S. Army helicopter pilot. But in 2004, her helicopter was shot down. And because of that, she suffered severe combat wounds, including the loss of both of her legs and some mobility in her right arm. But she continued to want to serve this country. And so she ran for Congress, and then she became senator. She is the daughter of an American father and a Thai mother. So Tammy Duckworth actually immigrated from Thailand when she was very, very young. And she's a woman of firsts. So she's the first Thai American woman elected to Congress, the first person born in Thailand elected to Congress, the first woman with a disability elected to Congress, the first female double amputee in the Senate, and the first senator to give birth while in office. She is only the second of 3 Asian American women to serve in the U.S. Senate, after Mazie Hirono of Hawaii, and before Kamala Harris of California, who is now obviously running for vice president. So she is a trailblazer in every sense of the word. And so I did this interview with her just a few days ago. And you will notice in the interview, we say that have been 75 million early votes submitted already, but that was a few days ago. And of course, as I said at the top of this, now there's 93 million and counting. So here is my interview. It's a little on the short side because she was very tight on time. So I appreciated the fact that she was able to give me any time before the election. But here's my interview with Senator Tammy Duckworth. Senator Duckworth, it's a pleasure to have you on the May Lee Show. Thank you so much. And first and foremost, thank you so much for your service and sacrifice to this country. It's so appreciated. We need more heroes like you all over the world.
Oh, thank you. I'm no hero, but we have amazing men and women who serve in uniform. Yes.
We do. We do. Well, of course, we are right around the corner from the election. So I would love to first ask you what your assessment is. What are your thoughts on where we're at right now, particularly since more than 75 million people so far have cast their ballots? That's incredible.
It is incredible. I think people predicting we may get to 100 million early votes, which is amazing. Almost 30% of our population. It's going to be shatter all sorts of records. I am cautiously optimistic. I think all Democrats right now are running scared because of 2016.
Yeah.
And I think running scared is the way to run because it means that you don't leave anything for granted and you run as hard as you can all the way through the finish line on election day. So I will tell you, though, that many states that I didn't think we would have a shot at, we are looking like we're doing. We might be able to flip some Senate seats that we didn't know that we would be able to. So kudos to all of our candidates that are running hard up and down the ticket, from Joe Biden all the way down to your local, person that's running for dog catcher.
Right. No. And I've been saying to my viewers and listeners, it's important to vote up and down the ballot, not just for president. Mm-hmm. All of these different levels of government and offices are important. So, but what does this tell you then about why people are being driven so hard this time around to go vote and go vote early and, cast that ballot? And especially to those people who maybe sat it out in 2016, what is this telling you about this moment?
That people are hurting, that people in this country are hurting, and they know that Donald Trump has gotten them there and that it's time for a change. I mean, people, we have 230,000 Americans who've lost their lives so far. Yep. We think between 7 and 8 million are also have been COVID positive. And we have no idea how many more are positive and have never been able to get tested. I have 2 staff members who couldn't get tested, right, who came down with what we're pretty sure was the illness early on. And so people are hurting. They either have lost a loved one, or they're home, without a job, or they're at home trying to work from home and homeschool their kids. They're watching their kids fall behind. They're losing their health insurance, or they themselves are sick. And so that's what's driving people to the polls, because their lives are being affected in a negative way, and they need help.
And again, we don't want to jump to any conclusions yet. And like you said, you're cautiously optimistic because a lot of us are still suffering from PTSD from last time. So we want to be sure that we don't rest on our laurels. But is this a sign that this is a referendum on the Trump presidency, that the past 4 years was some sort of aberration or anomaly, and a lot of folks have finally said, okay, we need to right this ship. We're on the wrong path. This is the wrong course. This has to be some sort of course correct.
Yes. So I would agree with you about 80%. I would say that is true, but we cannot forget that there were Americans who voted for Donald Trump, who are going to vote for him again this time, who really feel like they've been left behind, or that they themselves have not had their concerns addressed. So we can't forget about those Americans who are also suffering, who think that Donald Trump has the answers for them, because they have legitimate concerns as well.
Right. Now, you were considered as a potential VP pick by the Biden campaign. Obviously, we all know that he went with Kamala Harris at the end. But what was that feeling like for you at the time when you were being considered?
Surreal. I mean, I have imposter syndrome every day that I'm a senator. I go and I show up at the caucuses, and I'm sitting next to Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders and Sherrod Brown and all these folks. And so to have my name mentioned in the same breath as a dozen other amazing women was surreal and just quite an honor.
Okay, Senator Duckworth, the fact that you have imposter syndrome is kind of laughable because of all of your achievements, but I'm glad to hear that even someone like you can suffer from imposter syndrome once in a while. But well, your thoughts then? You are part Asian. Your mother is Thai, and
Mhm.
Kamala Harris, her mother is Indian, and so. I mean, as an Asian American, of course, when this happened, we were all so thrilled by the fact that this was a possibility. And you are just one of three Asian American senators in the Senate right now. So tell me what that's like. What kind of burden, maybe, or pressure is on you to sort of carry the weight of Asian Americans in the AAPI community?
Well, I think of it as a privilege. And by the way, because we're going to lose Kamala out of the Senate,
Yeah.
we will now have more white men named John than we will people of color in the United States
No,
Senate.
are you
That is
kidding?
wrong.
Oh, that's so wrong.
No, there are seven persons of color and seven white men named John in the United States
Wow.
Senate right now.
Okay, got to
Once
change
Kamala
that.
leaves, there'll be more. It will be outnumbered. Um,
Okay.
Wrong. That is
That is
wrong
very
because that is
wrong.
not representation of our nation.
No.
And if you don't have true representation, whether it's on the Senate floor or in the C suites or at the very top of the military, then we are not a nation of, for, and by the people in the truest sense of the word. And so for me, the pressure isn't so much on sort of, the pressure of representing Asians is on my shoulder. It's more, what can I do to get more Asians elected to office?
Right.
What can I do to make sure that more moms are elected, more women, more people of color, more people who didn't grow up in wealthy families, more people like me who didn't speak English until I was 8.
Right.
Because that is the strength of our nation. At the end of the day, we can have that diversity in the halls of government, then our nation would be that much more equipped to engage with the world, and much more equipped, the Senate will, to serve the American people, because the American people are diverse. And
Right.
so for me, the pressure is on making sure we get more people elected.
And the good news is that a new data point came out that there's a record number of Asian Americans running for state
Yes.
legislature. And that is amazing. So clearly, there's this movement of more Asians going into politics because they see the importance of that kind of representation and having a voice and a seat at the table. But
Mm-hmm.
the dark side of what is happening with AAPIs lately because of COVID, all the xenophobia. As you well
Mm-hmm.
know, that has been an ongoing problem and continues to get almost worse on a daily basis. We're hearing about these attacks, either verbal or physical. And no thanks to leadership who has,
Mm-hmm.
fueled this rhetoric because of COVID. So I'm wondering from your perspective as well, as a senator, but a member of the AAPI community, your thoughts on this continuation of the xenophobia and this sort of race baiting that we're seeing in the United States.
Well, what makes me really upset is, I mean, I'm not surprised that Donald Trump does it and that the people around him did it.
Yeah.
But what really makes me very upset is that my Republican colleagues enable him to do it. We
Yeah.
tried to pass a resolution condemning that,
Yes.
and the Republicans in the Senate wouldn't vote for it.
Not
Uh,
one voted for it.
Not one, not one. How can you not vote to condemn race baiting and xenophobia against Asian Americans, against any group of people? And
Right.
so that to me was more upsetting than Donald Trump. I don't expect, look, he's a president of the United States. There are codes of conduct that he continues to fail to live up to. But for my Republican colleagues to not condemn him, they enable this bad behavior. And then what happens? They enable the divisions in our country, the blame and all of that to happen, and
Right.
really sets us back with, all of the gains that we've made as Asian Americans, APIs over the last decades. And we still have a lot of work to do. We
Yeah.
need to, I am, a co-sponsor of the Takai Korematsu bill to right the wrongs of World War II. We're still trying to fix those problems, and yet we have a whole fresh new attack.
Well, then what do you say to the AAPI community and beyond, honestly, because it's really more of a public education and informing the general public about the fact that this is wrong, right? And this exists, that this kind of racism exists and people should be more aware of it. What do you say, though, to the AAPI community when they see things like the Republicans voting down a simple resolution, just denouncing anti-Asian sentiment, to encourage them to say, listen, it's okay. We're going to get through this. It's going to get better. Because oftentimes my viewers and listeners write to me and say, this is horrible. I don't know what to do anymore. I've given up.
Right. Well, you have to do the opposite. You have to call it. You have to call it out and identify it for what it is, not just for the person that's doing it, but for the people around you within your community. You cannot accept it. And oftentimes in minority communities, there's a desire to just like, okay, then we're just going to double down and work harder and maybe, we'll survive this and we'll move on to something else. We can't do it. We have to call it out and identify it for what it is. I learned this also with women who run for office. Oftentimes will be the victims of misogyny. And if you call out the sexism when it happens, voters actually will vote for you because you've stood up for it. And we have to do the same thing with race baiting. We have to stand up and say, that is not acceptable behavior. That is racism. And people will rally around you once you do that, as opposed to sort of stoically taking it and trying to ignore it and move on. That doesn't help.
And that's the good news. I mean, I've seen that there's a lot more people willing to vocalize their unhappiness and, the fact that they want to push back within our community and beyond. Curious though, personally, Senator Duckworth, have you received any racist comments or backlash during this time? Because I know Grace Mung, the representative who did introduce that resolution, the anti-Asian sentiment resolution, she got a lot of hate calls, hate mail after she did that.
Of course I did, but this is a standard line of attack that has happened against me. And, I had the whole thing with my patriotism being questioned earlier this year as well. And so I just, you call it out and then you make that your fire in your belly to fight it and fight back. And you can't let that stop you because it's going to keep coming, especially if it's something that is being fomented by the president of the United States, and you have to stand up to it. Because if I don't stand up to it, and I'm a United States senator, how do I expect the average person who's walking down the streets or the average Asian child who's on her bicycle that's getting knocked off her bicycle like has happened to stand up to it?
Yeah.
It's my honor to be able to stand up to it and not allow it to happen.
Well, Senator Duckworth, you represent Asians, you represent women, you represent, the military, and all three have been attacked by President Trump. Let's just call that out, right? He has attacked all three.
Exactly.
It's incredible that those three, categories that you represent, he has attacked openly. So I don't know how you do it, and I don't know how people in office keep their cool. As a journalist, we're supposed to, but there are times when I literally want to throw something at the television because I cannot believe this is happening. So for you, there must be moments where you're like, you want to rip your hair out.
Oh yeah, of course. But that's when you close the door and you scream and then you like redouble your efforts, because I just remind myself that he attacks the things that he fears the most.
Yeah.
That's who he attacks. He attacks people and groups that stand up for values and that he does not possess, and codes of conduct that he does not possess. So he's afraid of strong women. He attacks them. He attacks military men and women and Gold Star families because they sacrifice and they're willing to put the nation above themselves. He attacks everything that threatens him because he's afraid of it. So I just know that that's the kind of power we have over this man, and we're going to vote him up.
Yeah, well, remember what he said just recently at a rally that he was going to get the husbands' jobs back, right? The women's husbands' jobs back. And so I don't know if I'm sure you had the same reaction. Excuse me, we all work. What are you talking about? So yeah, so he continues his offensive rhetoric. Here's the thing, though, Senator Duckworth, and I know we're running out of time, but he has certainly suggested that he may not agree to a peaceful transfer of power. We know that militia groups are supporting him, and they have openly said that they're standing by to incite violence if Donald Trump loses, because they're going to claim that this was a rigged election, that it was unfair. Are you afraid of what may happen regardless of who wins post-election?
I'm concerned, but I'm prepared. And we are prepared to handle any type of shenanigans this president and his allies try to pull. I am less worried about the militia groups than I am the attorney general sending in federal troops, federal law enforcement, not federal troops, not military, but sending in like he did at Lafayette Square, where he sent in TSA,
Yeah.
police in to seize ballots and the like. But luckily, in those battleground states, we largely have Democratic governors, and I expect that the people will stand up to him. But the best thing that we can do for those who are as concerned as I am is to win on election day, is to make it clear that Joe Biden is winning by a landslide, and I think we will, so that Trump cannot have anything to hang his hat on by arguing that it's too close to call.
Right, right. And final question then. This country has been hurting. Like you said at the beginning of this, we've been divided. We're hurting in so many different ways. What do you think it's going to take to heal this country?
I think it's for us to come back together and show empathy for one another. And that's why I said what I said about the folks who are going to be voting for President Trump this election cycle is, we need to remember that they're Americans, that they're our neighbors as well. And many of them are probably our friends. And that we have to understand and try to understand that they feel that there's something lacking, and try to address those issues. And I know that Joe Biden will be a president for all, not just for some of us, everybody, as long as they love this country as much as I do. And I still feel that way about everyone except for one man. But I don't think Donald Trump loves this country as much as I do. I think Donald Trump loves himself, believing that people love this country as much as I do. And if you do that, we can find common ground.
Yeah. I couldn't have said it better myself. Senator Tammy Duckworth, thank you so much for your time. And can I just end this way? And, please don't get offended, but you are such a badass and you make me so proud as a woman, as an Asian American, and as someone who cares about this country. So thank you so much again for your service and your commitment to doing what's right for this country. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Of
It's been
course.
fun.
Yeah. Good luck to you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Badass. Total badass. So I was so glad to speak to her. And she is such a genuine person of great character and honor, and truly believes in this country and what it represents. So, man, I wish we had some more people like her serving this country. But guess what? Let's make it happen. Let's push this effort to make this country into what it should be and what it is admired for. And it is because it's made up of people from all walks of life. And the diversity of this country is what makes it powerful. One note I should add, in the interview, you guys heard that I was saying, Donald Trump attacks three things that make you who you are. She is woman, she's an Asian, and she served in the military. But he's also attacked disabled people and immigrants. So, and she is that as well. So she basically makes up 5 different categories of people that Donald Trump has attacked openly over and over again. So if Tammy Duckworth can stand up to that kind of bullying and that kind of hate and criticism, then we sure as hell can. We should definitely take a lesson from Senator Duckworth for sure. And so here's the thing. Like I said at the top of the show, there are these efforts to suppress the vote. Voter suppression efforts are going on, and I expect, and a lot of people expect, to see that happen tomorrow on election day. So be strong. Don't be intimidated. We have to make this happen. Again, you guys know where I stand, right? I'm not a Donald Trump supporter, and I hope that he does not get elected for a second term, because I think that we will then go down the road of no return. We'll reach the point of no return. But voting is your right. So we can't take it for granted. If you voted, tell your friend to go vote if they haven't voted. If your parents haven't voted, please have your parents vote, your aunties and uncles, your cousins, whoever. Just get that word out and try to convince those who haven't voted or maybe just aren't interested that they need to vote. This is a crucial, consequential vote. And this election year is going to change the direction of our future one way or another for a long, for many years to come. So yes. Okay. So that's my little, message to you. Lastly, I just want to make do a quick shout out to another Patreon member who joined at the dedicated warrior level, YC Ting. Thank you so much, YC. You are a dedicated warrior, so I appreciate your support. I'm always so humbled and so grateful when anybody wants to support the show in that way. So thank you so much. And for those of you who don't know, we do have a Patreon campaign going on for the show. If you are interested, go to patreon.com and look for The Mei Lee Show. I have 3 different tiers of support. The first tier is warrior level. The second tier is dedicated warrior. And the third tier is badass warrior. So if you are interested in supporting the show in that way, check it out. Check it out. There are different levels and then different things you get, as that level of patron. So thank you so much for listening and watching, you guys. Whew! November 3rd, big day, big day. I am most likely going to do something very special on November 3rd for Election Day, so stay tuned for that. You will hear about it if we kind of get all the pieces of the puzzle together. So be on the lookout for that announcement on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and all sorts of other places. Okay? All right. Until then, take care. But let's see what happens tomorrow. Hang on to your hats, folks. It's going to be a little bit rocky and bumpy, but we need to pay attention. All right? Okay. Take care.